I found out on a Tuesday, not because of a text I wasn't supposed to see, not because of a lipstick stain or receipt left in a coat pocket. I found out because of a laugh, a single, quiet laugh, the kind that doesn't belong to you, the kind that exists in a private world you were never invited into. I heard it through a half-open door, and something in my chest cracked open like old porcelain. I didn't say a word. I backed away from that door slowly, the way you back away from something that has already seen you. And I went downstairs and I put the kettle on, and I stood there with my hands flat on the cold granite counter, watching the water begin to tremble and then to boil. And I thought, you are going to have to be very, very careful now. That was 18 months ago. I want to tell you what happened after that. All of it, because I need someone to know how it really went. Not the version my sister heard, not the version my husband's attorney tried to spin, and certainly not the version Marcus told anyone who would listen. I want to tell you the truth, my truth, and it starts long before that laugh. My name is Catherine. I'm 53 years old. I was married to David Hargrove for 26 years. When people ask me to describe David, and they do ask, constantly, the way people pick at a wound they find fascinating, I always say the same thing. He was the kind of man who made you feel chosen. That's the most honest way I know how to put it. From the very beginning, from our first date at a little Italian place in Georgetown where he ordered the wine without even looking at the menu, David had this way of focusing on you completely. When you spoke, he listened. When you laughed, he laughed a half-second later, like he was savoring the sound before joining it. He made you feel like the most interesting person in any room. 26 years. 2 children. A home in Virginia with a wraparound porch, and an old oak tree that the grandchildren would someday climb. A life I had built brick by careful brick, every single day. I had met Marcus when my daughter, Sophie, brought him home for Thanksgiving 7 years ago. He was 28 then, sharp-jawed and quick-witted, the kind of young man who charmed everyone at the table within the first 15 minutes. He charmed me. I liked him. I was happy for Sophie. When they got married 2 years later, I cried at the altar in the good way, the grateful way. I danced with Marcus at the reception. I called him my son. He was not my son. I know that now in a way that goes bone deep. The first clue, the one I should have seen for what it was, but didn't, came about 8 months before that Tuesday. David came home later than usual from a Saturday golf game. Nothing strange about that, but he was quieter at dinner. Not distant, not cold. David was never obviously cold, just smaller somehow, like he was conserving something. I noticed it and filed it away the way you file away a strange sound in the night. You acknowledge it, and then you let yourself go back to sleep. A week later, I picked up David's phone to check the weather. Mine was charging across the room, and I saw a text from Marcus, just a name on a screen, no preview. I set the phone back down. Nothing about that should have stood out. Marcus texted David occasionally. They golfed together. They liked the same football team. There were legitimate reasons for a son-in-law to text his father-in-law. But something, some small animal instinct, made me remember it. I started paying attention after that. Not obsessively, not at first, just noticing. I noticed that David deleted his call history at the end of every day. He'd never done that before. I knew because for 26 years, if I ever borrowed his phone, his entire call log was just sitting there, boring and transparent. Now it was always blank. I noticed that Marcus had started coming over without Sophie more often, just to watch the game with David, or to drop something off. He'd stay for an hour, sometimes longer. I noticed that when the 3 of us were in a room together, David, Marcus, and me, there was a new energy, something taut and careful. David laughed a little too easily at Marcus's jokes. Marcus helped himself to a second drink a little too comfortably. And I noticed, this is the one that I came back to again and again in those early weeks, that David had started recommending Marcus for things. A business contact here, an introduction there. David had spent 30 years building a network in commercial real estate, and he was quietly, steadily, opening those doors for his son-in-law. I told myself it was generosity. I wanted it to be generosity. Welcome to Big Sky Storytime. I hope you will like this story. Before listening to the story, I request you that if you have not subscribed to my channel, please subscribe to my channel and make the video a worthy one. Let's go to the story. Then came the Tuesday. I had come home early from my book club. Headache. Nothing dramatic. I pulled into the garage and went in through the back, and the house was quiet in the way that tells you someone is home but doesn't want you to know it. I noticed David's car in the garage. I noticed a glass of water on the counter that hadn't been there when I left. I went upstairs. The door to David's home office was half open, and I heard it. That laugh. Marcus's laugh. Low and private. The laugh of a man who is completely at ease. And then David's voice, soft in a way I hadn't heard in years, the voice he used to use with me, years ago, in the early days, when we still spoke to each other like we were something fragile and precious. I stood in that hallway for what felt like a very long time. Then I went back downstairs, I put the kettle on, and I began to understand. I want to be honest with you about those first few days, because I think people expect the betrayed woman to fall apart, and I did, just not the way anyone would expect. I didn't cry. I wanted to. I kept waiting for the tears to come and release something, but they didn't. What came instead was something cleaner and colder. Clarity. The terrible, crystalline clarity that comes when the world stops pretending and finally shows you its actual shape. I thought about Sophie, my daughter, 29 years old, 3 years into her marriage, talking with increasing excitement about starting a family. I thought about what this would do to her, and I felt a grief so large and so formless that I couldn't look directly at it. So I didn't. I set it aside. There was work to do first. I thought about David, 26 years, and I thought about the particular cruelty of the specific person he had chosen. Not a stranger, not a coworker, but the man my daughter loved. The man who sat across from me at Christmas dinner. The man I had welcomed. And I thought, if I confront them now, what happens? They deny it. David cries, possibly. Marcus disappears for a few days and then returns to Sophie with some story. And I become the hysterical woman, the unstable wife, the one who made accusations she couldn't prove. No. I had built a life. I had helped build David's career, the early years, the struggling years, the dinners with investors I didn't like, the weekends he missed, the compromises I made without ever calling them sacrifices. I had watched him become successful, and I had been proud of him, genuinely proud, with the open-handed love of a woman who wanted good things for her husband. If there were going to be consequences, and there were going to be consequences, then I was going to be the one to decide what they looked like. I called my college roommate, Diane. She's a family law attorney in Maryland. I drove to her office on a Wednesday morning, and I sat across from her desk, and I told her what I knew and what I suspected and what I needed. Diane looked at me for a long moment. She said, "Catherine, are you sure?" I said, "I'm not sure of everything, but I'm sure enough to need to know what my options are." She told me, all of them. We talked for 2 hours. When I left, I had a notebook full of careful handwriting and a plan that was barely a plan yet, more like a skeleton, something I could hang things on as I learned more. The first thing I did was get my own financial picture in order. I had been the secondary earner in our marriage for most of it. I ran a small interior design business that had been modestly successful, but David's commercial real estate firm was the engine of our life. I knew the broad strokes of our finances. I didn't know the details. I started learning them. David, I discovered, had structured several of his business assets in ways that were not quite what they appeared to be on our joint tax returns. I didn't understand it all at first.
I hired an accountant, a forensic accountant, which felt like a dramatic phrase until she started explaining what she found. What she found was interesting. Marcus, it turned out, had been brought on as a silent partner in one of David's subsidiary companies about 14 months ago, just around the time I realized with a slow, cold recognition that David's behavior had begun to shift. The business arrangement came first, or maybe they had grown together, the personal and the professional, feeding each other until neither of them could tell the difference. In any case, Marcus stood to inherit significant financial benefit if things continued as they were, and David had been quietly restructuring things in ways that if I had divorced him on that first Tuesday, if I had stormed upstairs and screamed and made him leave, would have left me with a fraction of what I was legally entitled to. He had been planning for the possibility of getting caught, just not planning carefully enough.
I want to tell you about the weeks in the middle, because I think they were the hardest and because no one ever talks about the middle. The middle is where you still have to make dinner. The middle is where your husband kisses your cheek when he leaves in the morning and you let him because the kiss is evidence of something and you are collecting evidence. The middle is where Marcus comes for Sunday lunch and you pour him a glass of wine and ask about his work and listen to him talk about a project he's excited about. And you watch his eyes and you smile and he has no idea. No idea. There is a particular power in being underestimated. I had not fully understood this before. David thought he knew me. After 26 years, he believed he had the complete map of who I was. He knew what upset me and what didn't, what I paid attention to and what I overlooked. This is the part that still makes something burn in my chest. He had calculated that I was safe, that I would not look too closely, that I was, at some fundamental level, too trusting, too comfortable, too invested in the life we had to risk dismantling it. He was right about the trusting parts. He was wrong about the rest. I started keeping a journal. Not on my phone, not on any computer he could access. A paper journal, the old-fashioned kind, kept in my studio at the back of the house where I kept my design samples and fabric swatches. I wrote down dates and times. I wrote down the call history I'd found on our phone bill. David had forgotten that the detailed records came in the paper statement, the one I'd always handled. Hundreds of calls to Marcus's number over 14 months. I wrote down what the forensic accountant told me. I documented everything. And then I called Diane again, and I said, I think I'm ready. Diane helped me understand that timing in a divorce proceeding is almost everything. Filed in the wrong sequence, I would lose leverage. Filed correctly with documentation already assembled, I would be in an extraordinarily strong position. But before the legal process, there was something else I needed to do. Sophie needed to know. Not from a court document, not from a rumor, not from Marcus's version of events shaped and softened for her consumption. From me. I have thought many times about whether I made the right choice in what came next. I've turned it over the way you turn over a stone, looking at every surface. And every time I come back to the same answer. Yes, I would do it again. I asked Sophie to come to lunch, just the two of us. She came on a Saturday, bright and easy, talking about paint colors she was considering for their guest room. We ate, we laughed. She looked so young to me. She had David's eyes. I waited until the coffee came. Then I told her, quietly, carefully, with all the documentation I'd prepared, the phone records, the financial arrangements, the timeline. I didn't dramatize it. I didn't cry. I laid it out the way you lay out a map so that she could see exactly where everything was. She was silent for a very long time. Then she said, "How long have you known?" I told her, and then I said, I needed to make sure you were protected before anything happened. I needed the financial picture sorted out, and I needed you to hear this from me. She looked at me and her eyes were wet.
but her voice was steady, and she said, "What do you need me to do?" She was her mother's daughter after all. What happened next moved quickly, because by then it was designed to. Diane filed the divorce petition on a Monday morning, citing financial misconduct and fraudulent concealment of assets, because that is what it was, legally. The forensic accountant's findings were attached. The documentation of the business arrangement with Marcus was attached. The phone records were attached. David found out at 11 o'clock that morning when his attorney called him. I was at my studio when he came home. I heard the front door. I heard him come through the house calling my name. I finished the cup of tea I was making, and then I walked into the living room. He was standing in the middle of the room with his coat still on, and he looked, I want to describe this exactly, he looked like a man who has been walking confidently across what he believed was solid ground, and has just heard it crack beneath him. "Catherine," he said. I sat down on the sofa. I didn't say anything. I'd learned over those months that silence had a weight to it that words didn't. You don't understand what you're... He stopped. Started again. "Whatever you think you know..." "David," I said, "I don't think, I know. And so does my attorney. And so does Sophie." The color left his face. "Sophie," he said. "She came to me," I said, which was true in the way that mattered. "Did you think she wouldn't?" He sat down heavily in the armchair across from me, and I watched something in him, some scaffolding he'd been maintaining for a very long time, simply give way. He didn't try to lie. I think some part of him understood that lying at this point was not available to him. The lies had a ceiling, and he had reached it. What he tried instead was appeal, explanation, the language of a man trying to negotiate from a position he no longer held. He talked about the pressure he'd been under. He talked about confusion. He talked about love in a way that was clearly intended to move me, and it did, but not in the direction he was hoping for. It moved me further into the cold clarity that had been carrying me all those months. I let him talk, and when he was finished, I said, "I want you to move out by Friday. My attorney will be in touch with yours about everything else." Then I stood up and I went back to my studio and I closed the door. Marcus came to the house that same evening. I don't know what he was thinking, that he could explain maybe, that he could salvage something. Sophie did not come with him. I did not answer the door. The consequences came the way consequences do when they've been properly set in motion, steadily and with a certain cold logic. The fraudulent concealment charge complicated David's divorce proceedings enormously. The forensic accountant's findings triggered an audit of the subsidiary company. Marcus, whose involvement in that company was now part of the public record of the divorce proceedings, found himself subject to scrutiny he had not anticipated. Their professional relationship, which had been the seed of everything else, collapsed under the weight of the legal proceedings. David's partners in the firm were not pleased. His reputation, carefully cultivated over 30 years, frayed and then tore in the ways that reputations do when the documents become public. Marcus and Sophie separated. This is the part that still costs me the most, not David's unraveling, which I had prepared myself for, but my daughter's marriage, the one I had cried at, the one I had danced at, gone quiet and then dark. She is rebuilding now, and she is stronger than I knew, but the cost of it is something I carry. I carry it and I keep walking, because that's what you do. The divorce was finalized 11 months later. I received a settlement that accurately reflected 26 years of partnership, because that is what the documents said it was, and there was no longer any room to argue otherwise. David moved to an apartment in the city. I have not spoken to him since the day he sat in my living room in his coat, looking at the floor. Marcus came to the house that same evening. I don't know what he was thinking, that he could explain maybe, that he could salvage something. Sophie did not come with him. I did not answer the door. I have been asked many times how I stayed calm through all of it, how I kept sitting across the table from them, pouring wine, asking about projects, letting David kiss my cheek. People seem to find this the most remarkable thing, more remarkable than the forensic accountant, more remarkable than the legal strategy. The stillness, they say. How did you do it? Here is the honest answer. I am not naturally a still person. I am a person who feels things enormously, who has always felt things enormously. When I stood in that hallway and heard that laugh, something in me wanted to put my fist through the wall. Something in me wanted to scream until the sound reached the neighbors. But I thought about Sophie, and I thought about what kind of ending I actually wanted. Not the ending that would feel good for 5 minutes, but the one that would hold, the one that would be true and lasting and mine. Anger is loud. Silence is patient. I chose patience. I am in the house still. The wraparound porch, the old oak tree, all of it. I fought for it in the settlement, not for sentimental reasons. I'm more clear-eyed about sentiment now, but because it is mine. I built it. I chose the floors and the paint colors and the garden. I made it what it is, in the same way I made the life inside it what it was. They can have the life we had. I didn't want it anymore anyway. What I have now is something smaller and stranger and much more solid. A morning that belongs entirely to me. A Sunday afternoon without performance. A relationship with my daughter that is, somehow in the middle of all the damage, more honest and more close than anything we had before. I have started designing again. Really designing, not the careful, peripheral version I'd practiced for years while keeping everything else running. I have clients who find me. I have mornings in my studio with good coffee and no one else's needs pressing in from the edges. I am, I realize, not recovering from the loss of David. I am recovering from the loss of who I was when I was with him, the woman who had learned to take up less space, to overlook things, to file away the strange sounds in the night and go back to sleep. I am not that woman anymore. People ask me what I would say to David if I could say anything. I wouldn't say anything, that's the truth. There is nothing I need him to hear and nothing he could say that would change the shape of things. But sometimes I think about that Tuesday, the kettle, my hands flat on the cold granite, the moment I could have done anything, screamed, collapsed, dissolved, and instead just stood there, watching the water tremble. You are going to have to be very, very careful now. I was. I am. Some people burn the house down when they find out what's been living inside it. I understand the impulse, but I liked my house, so I took it back. If you like this story of mine, please leave a nice comment and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thank you.